All right. What's up, everybody? We're going to be talking today about creating a profitable podcast for your business. We are live streaming. We're going to be on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So I'm just getting this stuff set up and finalized so we can get started. But today we're talking about creating a profitable podcast for your business, the framework that we follow, use for ourselves, and that we teach our clients to use as well. I'm also live streaming to TikTok, so I'm just gonna quickly pull this up. Since we are live streaming, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out and I'll do my best to respond to them. The lives are definitely meant to be like Q&As. So I'm gonna set this over here so we can get this going. All right. So like I said, today we're talking about how do we generate revenue from podcasting for our business. This is probably one of the most important things that we can do as a business owner, right? Like our business needs revenue to continue. And there's so many different marketing avenues. There's so many different ways to leverage social media, to leverage content creation, to grow your business. I have found that podcasting is a really great tool, fast tool, an affordable tool to build the business, to build relationships, and to generate revenue for the company. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today. Just looking to see if there's any questions. If you guys have questions while we're going through this stuff, feel free to comment. I'll do my best. I'm alone in the studio right now, but I will do my best to answer. And then I just got to check one last thing. Cool. What's up, Kelly? How's it going? Awesome. So we have some clients coming in about an hour and a half. So I'm going to be live streaming for about that time, talking about this. And we're going to be going through, once again, how do we create a profitable podcast, leveraging the framework that we follow, that also our clients follow. Over on TikTok, Anna Lifestyle and OT said, do you offer editing? Yes, Anna, we do offer editing. We offer not only the podcast creation, the management, but we also offer editing, video services as well. So shoot us a DM if you want more information on that. And like I said, if you guys have any questions while we're going, we are live, and this usually my lives are meant to be more Q&A, but we are going to go through some topics today and kind of walk through the framework of how you can leverage podcasting to generate revenue. So awesome, Anna. Looking forward to it. So I just got done with a business networking event this morning, and prompted me to want to come do this because I constantly forget how many people don't realize the true value of podcasting for your business, right? If your business is built on referrals, built on trust, built on relationships, then podcasting is a tool, an incredible tool that can really help you grow, right? Product-based companies, it's going to be a little bit harder. So we're really not diving into that. But I was just talking to this guy and we were talking about podcasting. And, you know, one of the things I bring up is how we don't really focus on view count for our clients, right? Because, which is a little bit different, because most people are selling you views. Most marketing agencies, most podcast companies, most of everybody is selling you on, I'm going to make you go viral. I'm going to generate lots of views for you. But when you talk to businesses that have gone viral, when you talk to businesses that get all these views, you'll realize that, yeah, maybe they got 1 million views over here, but it didn't generate any revenue for the business. And so 1 million views is great, but if it's not making money for you, if it's not generating real revenue for your business, then they're just vanity metrics, right? Our focus in the studio is we don't care about views. Do we want views? Of course we do, but we want qualified views. We want the only people in the world to watch your content to be potential customers. And we want them to learn to like you, trust you, and buy from you, most importantly. Right. So that's what we're focused on, is helping you develop the right strategy to then generate revenue for the business. And so I was talking to him about how, like, we have a podcast episode for Built in Vegas, a podcast that we use to meet people, a podcast that episode that only has 32 views, but we just did 40K in revenue from that. We also referred to a marketing agency that we work with $3,000 in monthly recurring revenue from that same episode. And normally when I talk to people about this, their eyes get wide and they're like, how did you do that with only 30 views? Well, because the context of the conversation, it was very specific. Our goals were specific with that episode, and we were able to achieve them. And so an episode with almost no views, because most people would say 30 views, that's all you got. That's literally nothing. But those 30 views, one of them was incredibly important. What's up, Jennifer? She's excited to be in the studio tomorrow. We're excited to have you with Rise Magazine. But one of those views was incredibly important, right? Because it generated revenue, 5 figures in revenue from one podcast episode with no views. So we are diving into the framework that we follow and that we educate our clients on and help them create strategy to get similar results. Now, obviously, results will always vary. There's a lot of factors at play. This isn't some magic solution that is going to change your business forever if you have a crappy business, if you have a crappy sales plan, if you have a crappy product or service, right? Like, this doesn't just fix everything wrong with your business, but it's a very good tool. So we're going to dive into this today. Like I said, we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. What's up, everybody over there on TikTok? If you guys have questions or anything that you want to ask about, make sure you throw them in the chat. I'll do my best to get to everybody. What's up, F&B Real Estate? So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about the framework that we follow to generate revenue. Like I just said, we had an episode, 30 views, generated us 5 figures in revenue. Other clients of ours, they were able to generate $9,000 in revenue before even launching the podcast. We've had other clients do other results, right? One of our clients in 1 year of podcasting has tripled his revenue. That podcast episode is actually dropping soon. So if you guys want to get our podcast, DM me. I'll send you the information for it. But we are dropping a podcast right now twice a month. We are going to move towards weekly soon. And the podcast is all about how do you generate more revenue from podcasting. So we brought a client on. He tripled revenue in 1 year of podcasting. So let's dive in. First things first, before you even start a podcast, you really need to understand your objective. Why are you creating this podcast? What are our goals? What's the whole purpose of doing this? If you're just doing this because everybody else is doing it and you don't have a clear strategy, a clear plan, you're not going to get results. Just like anything else in life, if you don't have a clear end goal, a reason behind doing this, then you're just kind of wandering, right? Any path would do. So the first thing you need to do is figure out why we are doing this. What is our goal? For most of our clients, it's going to be generating revenue for their business. Now, that can come from a few different ways. There is the objective of, I just want to meet more people. I'm going to do 4 episodes a month for a year. I'm going to meet 48 new people, potential customers, referral partners, and I'm leveraging a podcast that way. Then there's also the I want to be an educational resource. I want to provide a lot of value, a lot of education, and be the respected authority in my industry to my potential customers. Now, there's also the hybrid, which most of our clients end up doing, which is I want to meet a lot of people, but I also want to become the trusted source. So there's a few different objectives, but we have to figure out what's best for you. I'll give you an example. I'm going to be starting a podcast soon in the long-term care pharmacy space. I'm only doing one season, and my only goal is I want to go meet 10 more long-term care pharmacies. Why? Because my production company happens to work with a lot of long-term care pharmacies. They're kind of our ideal clients. And so by starting this podcast, I'm able to go out and meet more pharmacies. And I'm going to personally fly to them, pay for studio time in somebody else's studio versus doing a virtual call so I can get that in-person meeting because I know the value of this is worth it. So that objective is a lot different than becoming known as the expert in the industry, right? And so it really depends on your objective of what your goal is for the podcast. And like I said, if you guys have any questions about what we're talking about, feel free to throw it in the chat. We're live on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok won't see the comments popping up, but everywhere else should be able to see them. Let me just scoot this over really quick. Cool. So most people, they think about what should my podcast be about? That's not the first step, right? The first step is how do I want this podcast to grow my business? So let's get clear on that. Is this about meeting people? Is it about creating content, lead gen? What is it? Or is it a hybrid of both? So let me just pull over here to my notes. And also thank you for all the likes over on TikTok. I appreciate you guys. Once we understand what that clear objective is, right? Either going full scale, I only want to meet people, like the example of the long-term care pharmacy thing, or full scale, I only want to provide education. And then once again, the hybrid model, which most of our clients, we're going to push them towards that because it makes the most sense. We want you to bring guests on so you can build relationships, but I also need you building relationships online and positioning yourself as an authority. And if you're only always interviewing other people, then you're not getting that face time with them to really show your expertise. You do kind of, right? We know a realtor that was on our podcast in Salt Lake who hardly talks about real estate. And yet it's opened the door to a bunch of real estate transactions because she's built trust, she's likable, and she's provided value to them outside of that. So they go like, I like her. She'd be a great person for my realtor. So every business is going to be a little bit more unique. Some clients, we're going to tell them that it's probably better to really niche down the conversation. And other people like the realtor, it might be better to be a little bit more broad and have conversations that are not so real estate focused. Once again, depending on your goals, because if we dive into real estate, every realtor has different business goals. Some of them want to only work with investors or flippers. Some of them want to only work with first-time home buyers, right? Like it really depends on who your audience is. And that's the next step. You need to understand who is the right audience for this podcast. Right? We're not creating conversations for ourselves. We're not doing this for fun. We're not doing this to become famous. We're doing this to generate results for our business. So it's incredibly important that we understand our audience. For most people, that audience is going to be your ideal customer, right? But we need to get very specific on this. We need to know exactly who that customer is. What are they struggling with? What types of conversations do they need to hear from you in order to make that purchasing decision, right? How do we build trust with them? How do we relate to them? That is incredibly important. You know, there's that saying, if you're for everyone, you're for no one. The same goes with the content you're creating. The same goes with the podcast you create. If you're creating this podcast for everybody to listen to, then it's really not for anybody. So we like to get very specific, and we like to help our clients narrow down, who is this actually for? Who's going to be watching this content? What do we want to achieve with them watching this content? Is that lead gen? Is that we want them to join this online community and that puts them in our funnel to then go here? Is that we need them to reach out? Is that we just need exposure, right? All the goals are going to be different, which is why it's important to understand the main goal, because that's going to help us decide what audience is best. For example, I'll use what we do here in the studio. We actually have 2 different podcasts now. We have one podcast that is a general entrepreneurship podcast, specifically business owners in Vegas, where we tell their story of building their business. It's called Built in Vegas. This has nothing to do with podcasting. Our audience is for local business owners, entrepreneurs, people who are starting their business, people who have been around for a while. We're using it as a relationship tool, but also a tool to build some trust and authority and likability in the area we live, right? We live here in Las Vegas. Our clients are mainly from Las Vegas, not all. And as we continue to do our other podcasts, we are going to be offering online services. And so our clients won't just be in Vegas anymore, right? But Built in Vegas is designed for us to meet new people and create content that local entrepreneurs will want to listen to. Now, would it be cool to grow this and get a lot of views and turn it into something like Diary of a CEO? Of course, that'd be really cool, but our intention isn't that. I don't care about the view count. Once again, Built in Vegas is the podcast that we have that only 30 views on one episode generated us $40,000 in revenue. And it's probably going to do close to 6 figures in revenue this year because of that one episode. If I never filmed that episode, these opportunities would not have been presented to me. That's crazy to think about, right? If I didn't invest the time to interview this very specific person and have this conversation, then this revenue wouldn't exist for my business. And so podcasting really can generate opportunities and generate revenue for your business. We got a couple questions coming in. Let me pull up over here on Instagram. How's it going, F&B Real Estate? I appreciate you reaching out. What if you have 3 different sectors you serve? F&B, can you kind of just give me a little bit more information about that? And then I can dive into that. I guess this is kind of similar to what I'm talking about right now. So we have Built in Vegas, which is a podcast to connect with entrepreneurs. But then we need the content to create to show our potential customers who we are, what we believe in, the help that we provide. Because our studio isn't just a studio. We're not lights and cameras. We're this. We give you strategy. We give you advice. We guide you along the way so you can generate revenue for your business. So we need a podcast that reflects that, right? This live is going to be used as one of those, right? We're going live straight to our YouTube page. Later, I'll send this video out to our email list of potential clients and current clients and past clients, right? To provide value with them. So we created 2 different ones with 2 different objectives. The one over here that I'm doing right now isn't necessarily about meeting people. It's about providing education and serving our clients. It's about showing them that we care and giving them strategy that they can follow. And if you never use us, we don't care. We want you just to start because we know this is going to transform your business. Axel said, what happened? I missed it. I don't know what you mean. Sorry, I'm just getting into this. Makes sense. Best medias to learn podcasting or how to start. I would say our podcast that we're starting is called The Business of Podcasting. We might be changing the name because there is another one called that. But right now, The Business of Podcasting by the Video Podcast Studio. We are going to be dropping a lot of stuff like this. Also, join our lives. We are going to be starting an online community soon as well that is free to our clients, but a small fee to people that are not clients, where we are going to be doing 2 monthly lives just doing Q&As and providing support, plus obviously a lot of like community resources in there. All right. So FMB Real Estate said, I live on an island and I want to sell to here. And there are different buyers here, investors, second homes, some residents, but I also want to educate first-time home buyers and convert them to investors. Cool. So knowing that information, right, you need to be putting out a lot of education. It seems like you're kind of more on the investor and some people, looking to buy homes, right? Like, because if your goal is get first-time home buyers and turn them into investors, we're still really creating more investment content around real estate, right? So we're creating content about why on this island in particular, selling real estate is, or buying real estate is good. What does the future look like? The pros and cons to buying an Airbnb property. We can bring on property managers. We can bring on business owners that own properties, right? We can bring on investors and maybe leverage the podcast then to meet more investors. And you can do episodes that are specifically for first-time home buyers. So you would still have your theme of real estate is a really good investment tool, right? Real estate can create generational wealth. Real estate can do a lot. I actually was just listening to an episode of The Diary of the CEO late last night, and I would actually probably listen to that episode. I forgot who the guy was with. I think it's the pay yourself first guy. I forgot the guy's name, but I would probably pull clips from that because there's some really good clips and react to them, right? Provide education on why you should be buying a house, why now is a good time, pros and cons to it, right? And then leverage it to still meet people. Hopefully that makes sense. But the content you're going to be creating, once again, you need to niche that down to who is my main person. You'll still get some of these other people, right? Because if you were going to do just about relocating, then I would create content just about relocating, right? But it seems like you're more into investing, so I would focus a lot more on the investing side, but then you can also have options where you do episodes about relocating to the island. I don't know which island you're on, but there's a realtor in Hawaii that I've met who crushes it. His team does an insane amount of volume. And all he does is create YouTube videos educating people about investing in real estate. So that's probably the direction I would say to go. Violent Gentleman Hockey Club, what's up? Clee Art Plug. Why does your hat say Violent Gentleman? I'm getting asked on TikTok. It's actually a hockey brand. So my son plays hockey. We're pretty into it. And so, yeah, hockey brand hat. Actually, one of the guys who work here bought it for me as well. So it's one of the hats I like to wear a lot. All right. So hopefully that answers some questions. And if anybody else watching has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. We're here to answer them. That's the point of these. All right. So we went over, right? First things first, figure out the goal. Why are we doing this? Then we went into, you got to find the right audience. You need to know who you're speaking to. Because once again, if you're speaking to everybody, you're speaking to nobody. Then we really try to educate our clients to think of a podcast, not so much as a show, but as an opportunity to open doors, an opportunity to have conversations, and really a trust accelerator. We currently live in what I like to call a trust economy, right? More and more people trust less and less online. They trust influencers less. They trust ads less. It takes more impressions to convert somebody. Trust is incredibly important. This isn't anything new. Business is built on trust. If they can't trust that you're going to be able to help them solve their problem, they won't purchase from you. A podcast allows you to accelerate the trust process. I'm just checking where they're on the comments. Let me pull up over here real quick. Cool. Brook it up. Once again, it's a hockey brand. So, all right. The other part of the trust factor comes into one, being very particular about who you bring on your show because you're going to be associated with that person. We just recently had a pretty big name in the marketing space on our podcast. We're going to be dropping that episode very soon. And he talks about this a lot, actually. He talks about, he's being asked to come on a ton of podcasts. And I was actually surprised that he said yes to us. And one thing he talked about, as advice is to be very careful about who you invite on or who shows you go on, right? Because then you're going to be associated with that person. And sometimes when clients or people just starting the podcast are getting started, they want everyone and anyone on, but you really don't, right? We really need to figure out, once again, the goals and objectives of the podcast, and then find out who do we want to have around, right? Because the people we bring on, we're associated with, right? There's that saying, guilty by association. And it's true. If this person is not a good fit for your business and brand, and maybe has done some shady things, and yet now you're hanging out with them, you're kind of putting your stamp of approval when you bring them on your show, right? Once again, there's definitely exceptions and there's variations to this that are nuanced, but for the most part, we want to bring trusted individuals with a sphere of influence around our clients. So we want to be strategic about this, right? The guests that we bring on make a big impact. One, not only as potential customers of ours or referral partners, but we're collaborating with them. We're having conversations with them, and that conversation will go out to their sphere of influence, especially if it was a good one, they're willing to share it as well. So that's really important, right? We have to remember that the podcast is a tool to accelerate trust, and trust also comes in the form of the guests that you decide to bring on or not bring on, and the conversations that you choose to have. One of the part of the podcast that we're talking about is one of the part of the framework is using guests as a relationship. Like that's part of the strategy. Using guests to build a relationship. I'll use an example of ourselves, right? Actually, I'll use the example of Ivan. So Ivan runs a video marketing company and he brings his clients into here. They have a podcast that they started a little over a year ago. And in 1 year of podcasting consistently 4 episodes a month for a year, he's tripled his revenue because of the guests that he brings on. Those guests are typically potential customers, not always, but he builds a relationship with them. He opens the door to conversations. He opened the door to possibilities, just like the episode I talked about. If I never would have done that episode, I wouldn't have generated $40,000 in revenue. If I don't bring this person on, that door may never open. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to bypass those pesky little gatekeepers when you have a podcast and you've positioned the podcast to put your guest in a special place, right? This podcast isn't, oh, we're going to talk about how great I am. No. Hey, so-and-so, I love what you've been doing with your business. It's incredible. I'd love to bring you on and get your perspective on X, Y, and Z, how you've overcome these things, and really showcase your story, right? We make it about them. We make it about, we make them feel special, and it still provides value to our audience. And they're very likely to come on, even if you have almost no following. For example, Caleb just came on our podcast. We almost have no following. We're brand new at this. And yet, even though he's been on some giant podcast, he still came on ours because there's so much value in the video content and the connections being made. So you want to position it in a way that gives your guest value. I've seen this done terribly wrong. I've seen people want to come on podcasts and they do this terribly wrong, right? Like if you want to be a guest on podcast, and I know this is a little bit of a sidebar, but if you want to be a guest on a podcast, don't DM the podcast going, yo, let me on your pod. You'd be surprised how many DMs I get like that, or how many DMs our clients get like that, right? As a guest wanting to get on a podcast because maybe you're not ready to invest in doing your own thing. Maybe you're just looking to meet people and try to get on more shows for exposure, right? Which is good. And we definitely recommend doing that. But owning the platform, owning your own channel is definitely more important. But you definitely don't want to DM just saying, yo, let me on, right? Or, man, I'd really like to get on because I'm so cool and I'm great and I'm this and I'm that. No. What value do you provide their audience? What value do you provide the host, right? What's in it for them? They don't care if it's self-serving for you, as long as it benefits them. And so when you pitch to go onto a podcast, just like if you pitch somebody to come on your podcast, you need to make it about them. What kind of value will you bring to them, right? So when I reach out to potential guests to come on, I let them know, like, look, our podcast is small, but this is our audience. It's this type of person. These are the conversations we have. And I really want to hear your story. I really want to put you on a pedestal and learn more about you and hear about the things that you've done, right? Like my podcast, Built in Vegas, is F&B Real Estate said, yo, let me on your pod over on Instagram. I wish I could pull that out. That's funny. You'd honestly be surprised how many people literally just do that. Or I get DMs just say, yo, and then they don't even finish any of that. And then TikTok, I'll be responding to your thing really quick. Let me finish this thought. But yeah, you really want to show the value you're going to be providing them, right? Because this is a commitment of time, space. If you're trying to get on a show, they're spending money. It's their audience. And your audience is your gold, right? Like it needs to be kept very sacred. It needs to be like, you need to keep your audience safe from people and things that shouldn't be around them, right? Because you're building trust with them. This is where you generate your leads online, by providing them solid advice, reason, by being honest, by being real, and protecting them from the scammers, the snakes out there, right? And the more you do that, the more they trust you, the more they like you, the more they purchase from you. So provide some value before either asking to come on a show or when you're reaching out to bring guests on. Like we have a pretty high acceptance rate for people coming on our show because we make it all about them, right? Our podcast is to show what they've done. Our Built in Vegas one is all about what did this entrepreneur go through to get from here to there. And you'd be surprised how many entrepreneurs really want to share that story, because most people just assume you were successful. Oh, look at how nice this place is. Your life is so easy. But they don't know the sleepless nights, the endless hours, the pain it really took to build what they built. And so they want to share that story. So we have a high acceptance rate for people, and we're going to be a lot better about doing ours because we kind of fell off. So, all right. So TikTok, local X, besides the obvious difference, video, what's the biggest difference between a podcast and a radio show? So the radio show, I mean, if we're going strictly just audio, there's not much difference. I mean, a podcast is basically just a radio show, right? The difference is, are you taking that radio show and putting it out there? Now, radio shows can also be filmed, and that's would be considered a podcast, right? A podcast doesn't even have to be like even something like this. I could be speaking on stage record that, and put that out as a podcast episode. Right. And so there really isn't much of a difference between a radio show and a podcast, unless the radio show only lives on the radio, which would be pretty foolish to do because views aren't what they used to be on radio, right? Like there's way more accessibility to audiences and opportunity for growth on the other platforms. And so I would say there's really not too much of a difference, if that makes sense. F&B Real Estate, the pain when every Sunday I would hear, who invited you? Wait, I don't know what that's in relationship to. Sorry. But yeah, I don't know what that's in relationship to. Sorry. Maybe that was from earlier and I missed it. All right. So the next step to making your podcast profitable is actually use the podcast. All right. Like I'm guilty of this. And look, I generated revenue with never posting a single episode, but there's so much power in actually posting it, actually leveraging that conversation in your email newsletters, blog posts, right? Obviously cut it down to a bunch of short form content as well, and not necessarily oversaturate the market, but you should be showing up. You should be providing value. Pull those best moments and share it with your audience, right? Because you will get clients from short form content. You will get clients from long form content. You need both. But I've definitely been guilty of never posting episodes. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. And even though we do this all the time, oh, it's Lindsay. What's up, Lindsay? Sorry, I can't see the pictures on here from far away. So what's up, Lindsay? That made me laugh. Let me look over here. Let me check over here real quick too. See if there's any more. No. Okay. So I forgot what I was saying because now I was just thinking about Lindsay and her comment. That's funny. But yeah, you actually have to leverage it, right? Like you have to use the content you create. And I'm probably the worst at this. We film a lot of stuff, never post it. Things get in the way. But when you use it, it's really good. And once again, it's not about views. You don't need a ton of them. You just need the right ones, right? Like I posted or I sent out our first episode in an email list. And we got a few clients that were pumped on it and they wanted to do more because of the episode, right? And so for me, that's what we're looking to achieve. I'm not building a show to become famous. I'm not doing this content to become a content creator or influencer. I'm doing it to bring value to the people that we can help. And I know that if we do that, some of them will convert as clients. So it's worth my time to give as much as I can because it will generate revenue for the business. But if I'd never post, right? Once again, if I would have filmed that episode with Built in Vegas and never posted it, I lose out on 40K in revenue, right? Post the content. You'd be surprised how many clients of ours don't post their content and don't leverage it properly. It's not posted and be done. Once again, post short form clips from it. Use this in your email marketing. Use it as blog post creation. A lot of times you could probably create a few different email campaigns based off of this. You can create a few different blog posts off of this. You can also use it as an individual message. Like I've been talking to certain people. I've been talking to realtors actually, and I'll have a conversation with them and I go, hey, let me send you this podcast episode because I think it's going to bring a lot of value to you. I sat down with a realtor similar to you, and she talks about how her podcast generated her 9K in revenue before launching through sponsorships, and how she's been able to get $1 million listings and unique opportunities all from podcasting. I think this would bring you a lot of value, and I use it on an individual basis as well. Once again, I don't care about the masses. We're not trying to go after a ton of views. We're focused on building relationships with people and leveraging the content to build relationships online. And for those of you guys just joining in on like TikTok or LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll do my best to respond to them. as we go through all of this. That's what these lives are for, where you're here to just provide value and educate. So, right. So after that, you need to be leveraging it. And then you also have to, uh, what's up, Brandon, over there on TikTok, all sound ideas and strategies. I appreciate you, man. So, got to guide the listener to the next step. You need to have call to actions. You need to lead them somewhere. It can be somewhere small. A method that I like a lot that we're going to start doing to, one, really just prove a point that this works, but because it works and it's going to generate revenue for us, right? I can create an online community. So, like, let's go back to Lindsay with the real estate. She sells real estate on an island, right? I can create an online community based off of that, about people who want to learn about investing in this island, right? So I can have a podcast, and the goal is funnel people from the podcast either straight to me, or let's get you over into this online community that's only $15 a month, $20 a month, $100 a month, whatever it is, based off of what it is you're actually providing. So for us, we are starting one. It's an online community for businesses that want to leverage podcasting to generate revenue. We will be doing 2 monthly lives in there. We'll be hosting some other stuff. We'll be dropping our podcast episodes first in there, and some other things as we grow. It'll be free to our clients, but then we'll charge just $50 a month to be in this group where you're getting real advice and strategy. We're going to bring in guest speakers. We'll bring in people and do consultation calls on the live Q&As. So it's going to be a community. And so we're going to take our podcast and funnel people over here to this online community. Then for us, the podcast is then funded by this online community. If we can get 100 people in there, which is an incredibly small number, I'm in a online community for podcast studio owners, and it has 178 members in it, and they're all paying about $75 a month to be in there, right? So like 100 isn't very hard. $50 a month, that's $5K in revenue. It's completely funding the podcast. It's completely, it's generating revenue for the business. And now I have an audience base over here that I'm building even more trust for. And depending on what you do, you're able then to upsell them to somewhere else, right? Like, this is the bottom of the funnel, and we're going to get them climbing up. For us, majority of those people are probably going to be from not in state. So we are going to offer podcast management and editing, because there's a lot of companies doing this and they freaking suck and they charge way too much money. So we are going to start doing that, and leverage this online community to then sell that if they want it, right? We're not going to be pushy. So there's a lot of ways, and that's why it's important to understand your goals of, like, where are we pushing these people to? How are we leveraging this podcast to generate revenue for the company? I think most businesses, service-based, can do that. They can have their podcast. It can send them to the online community, and then the online community then can also open doors to bigger sales, right? Especially like business coaching, right? A business coach, you have your podcast. If you guys want more insights and more of this and live Q&As, then come to our podcast or join our online community. It's $50 a month, $75, $100, $1,000, whatever you're charging. Then in there, the push is to do one-on-one calls, monthly retainer stuff, right? So the podcast is the start of that. So there's a lot of ways to leverage the podcast. There's a lot of goals that can be achieved through your podcast. So that's why the very first step that we talked about at the beginning of this live was diving into what's the purpose? Why are we trying to do this in the first place? So one part of the framework, right, the ending part, is to understand, what does success look like? And this is something we talked about in the beginning, right? We want our clients focused on what actually matters, which is, does this podcast make you money? Not, did you get 1,000 views? Did you get 1,000,000 views? Did you get 100 million views? I don't care about that. I don't care if you got a ton of shares. Like, do we want that? Of course. But I would take 100 views of qualified potential customers versus a million views because we have a really funny podcast and none of them are potential customers, right? Like I'd way rather speak to 100 people that need my service, that I can help, that like me, that trust me because of the content I'm putting out, than a million people who are never going to use me. So we want you focused on what matters. Now, obviously, we want that number to grow. I'd rather you have 1,000 than 100 of ideal customers watching this. I'd rather you have 1,000,000 ideal customers watching this. But for some industries, there's not 1,000,000 of them, right? Like for us, we're only going after local Las Vegas businesses for the most part with the online community. That's kind of changing things in our perspective. But we're only going after people that we can service here in our city. And so I don't need people in Uganda, people in England, people in whatever watching this unless they're coming to Vegas. And if they're coming to Vegas, I hope they see some of our content and see some of the episodes and see that we care and that when they come to our studio, they're going to be treated differently than if they went to a different studio. We want them to see that. But they're going to find that when they search us and look up us, right? When they look in for Las Vegas podcast studios, they're going to find our stuff, right? So I don't care about getting views all around the world when my customer base is right here. Now, you might sell a product or service, which is everywhere. And then we need to expand that reach. And maybe we have to have broader conversations because that's what's best for you, which is why it's so important to have strategy and to follow a framework for success. Because if you have no strategy, you will not have success. So our focus is going to be on, does this generate you leads? Have you closed deals? Did it build any relationships that are significant? Right. And maybe this relationship turned into nothing, but they connect you to somebody else. And that can happen too. And that then turned into revenue. Right. So it's one of those things where we have to have this shift in mindset, shift in what's important. Social media has definitely warped everybody's brains and everybody thinks that I need a lot of views, I need a lot of engagement, and it's just not true. Once again, we'll go back to my own example because we track our stuff a little bit better since it's directly related to us than our clients. 32 views on a episode generated 40K in revenue and will probably do upwards of six figures this year because of that episode. I know people that get millions of views and they make nothing. They sell nothing. In fact, most businesses I talk to, if they've experienced going viral, if they've experienced these things, it felt cool. It was cool to get all these views, but it didn't impact the bottom line. And as a business owner, that's all we care about. We care about generating revenue for the business because we need revenue to grow. We need revenue to hire. We need revenue to make more money, right? Like, I don't care about views if it doesn't generate revenue. And that's what we try to educate and get across, which is why we talk about so much. And it's okay to talk about the same thing over and over and over because there's constantly new people finding your content. There's constantly new people finding it. And honestly, we've found that even though I say the same thing all the time to every single client that comes in, they'll watch an episode or they'll see a clip and they'll go like, oh, I've never thought about it that way. And I'm like, dude, I've told this to you a million times, right? So this is important for you if you work based off of referrals, B2B, built on trust. A podcast can really change the game. It can open incredible doors to incredible opportunities. Sometimes those opportunities aren't even based off of revenue too, which is cool, right? Like we had somebody come into the studio recently for a podcast and that opened the door to some hockey talk. And now that person is connecting us to some teams in Dallas where his son's plays because my son really wants to go play out in Dallas. And so because we had somebody on a podcast, built a relationship with them, Now it's opened up a new door, an opportunity for my son that has nothing to do with revenue, right? But it's a new opportunity that wouldn't have existed if we didn't have the podcast. What's up, Samantha? Brand builder. 100% revenue is greater than views. I mean, I can't stress this enough. I don't care about getting a lot of views. I care about generating revenue for your business. That is the most important part of our studio. We care that you see revenue come in from relationships built and from relationships made in person and online. And we see it. Once again, one of our clients, they did a podcast for a year, 4 episodes a month, and tripled in revenue. After I had that conversation with him, I realized that like I have to be better about my podcast, right? I have to be more consistent. I need to be dropping every single week. I need to meet 48 people this year, have them on my podcast, build relationships with them, or open the door to some relationships. And that's the thing. I mean, we've had it where we brought somebody on a podcast, and a year later, even though I never reached out to them again because I'm overwhelmed and busy and struggle at the follow-up, still generated revenue. They hit us up. They said, hey, remember that time you brought me on? Man, that was so cool. I appreciated it. By the way, I have a client for you. Or by the way, I want to get started. Like that happens so much. And sometimes, yeah, it takes 6 months, takes a year, but that's just the sales cycle. And that's just how it goes, right? Like we know this isn't an instant solution. And if you think anything's instant, you're out of mind. But there are times where there is an instant thing. We've seen deals close literally in the room. Like our studios where deals happen or where deals get started. And that's our mission. That's our goal, is to help you generate more revenue and build relationships. So hopefully this was helpful. I'm not even sure how long we've been going. And pull this up really quick, see if there was anything over on Facebook or Instagram. If you're watching on TikTok and you have any questions, or if you're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, please throw it in the chat. Right now, it's just going to be more Q&A for a little bit. If there are no questions, I'll be hopping off and get back to work for the day, getting ready for some clients coming in. So what's up, Jen, over on TikTok? Let me know if you guys have any questions at all. Be happy to answer them. I might stay on TikTok for a little bit longer, just hanging out. We're trying to be more active on TikTok anyways. So Instagram, let me know if you have any questions. Facebook, LinkedIn, let me know if you have any questions. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this can help shift the way you think about podcasting. I promise if you do start a podcast, you will see results if you follow the framework and the guidance that we give you. Every client that we have that listens sees results. And so we're really strong on, we believe in this. It's why we built the studio. It's why we care so much. It's why we host events. It's why we do this. It's why, we spend this time with our clients, because we know with the right strategy, this podcast could be a game changer, especially if you're a smaller business. Like the one I was saying, triple in revenue, he was doing like 120-ish a year, and he tripled. And going from 100K a year to over 300K a year is a big deal. I mean, tripling any number is huge, right? You built your business bigger. You've created more opportunities. You've created more resources to be able to do more of what you want to do to help more people. And I know that most business owners started their business to help people. We want to help you do that. We want to amplify your voice. We want to help you connect with more people. So, looks like no more questions coming in. I'm going to end the live over here, and then we're going to hang out on TikTok for a little bit longer. Once again, I appreciate you guys. If you guys ever have any questions, need help with starting a podcast for your business or some editing, if you're virtual, we can help you manage. We offer strategy. It's included with just coming to the studio. We don't charge for it. We just want to see you successful. Appreciate your time. We are the Video Podcast Studio. My name is Trevin, the owner, and appreciate your time.